Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gathering Conversations podcast. Today is November 22nd, and we are about to listen to episode number 8, which is, the name of the episode is, I'm thinking out loud, Satan is the Enemy. So we've been working on this little series that we're working through, and we've bounced back and forth because sometimes we stick in people's testimonies, and we're going to do that again here shortly. I'm working on a couple right now. But I'm going to keep announcements short today. Let's get right into this great conversation we have going on with my son-in-laws. Thank you.
Let's dive into the Gathering Conversations podcast. We're here to have genuine conversations about understanding what it means to be a Christian and how to live a truthful life that pleases Him. Our goal is to equip others to share the teachings of Christ with others. So, let's jump into today's conversation.
In episode 2, we will pose the question of how the church can balance the success of fulfilling the Great Commission against those who choose to be correct on every aspect of the Bible to the point of failing at the Great Commission. We really do need to understand which is better, being right on a subject matter or getting it right. With that in mind, we will also pose the question of the effects this is having on the Christian family. What are we doing to the next generation as we pass the truths of the Bible down to them and balance being right and getting it right in regards to the Great Commission? There's really only one conversation in 2 days in the matter of life. The conversation is, who is God? What did He say? What am I going to do about it? The 2 days are this and that. Today and the day I meet my Redeemer. In this section, we are also reminded that Satan is the enemy. We need all the talents and skills of the entire body of Christ to be used in the churches today. Are we utilizing the expertise that we have in our churches?
The philosophical concept of what we're doing tonight. So I'm working for the... And one of them is in a great market.
Is this confidential information?
This is proprietary.
Okay, just
I
making
don't
sure.
share that with anybody. One of them is in the right market. Makes all the money. This one is in charge of improving service, the brother. This one is the CEO of the whole thing. And this one is in charge of improving sales. And they came and asked me to just help. Just from above help. And they have one guy running it all. I work for that one guy. So it's interesting because this guy, who's in charge of service, started it all, ran it for years, and they always complain about him. So he doesn't care. He's like, all right, you guys run it. So he let this guy become the CEO, and he's in charge of service. So it's just interesting to watch that. So this is only a number which is labor, sales, and service potential for a year. They hire enough to make that much in labor only in service. They live up to this. That's what they're doing. So my conversation, they always are fighting with each other. This guy who's doing sales, his store does sales pretty well. They do it right. This guy who does service, his store does service right. They get it right. This guy doesn't care. He's making all the money. He's got it right. So being right and getting it right, it makes a friction.
Yeah.
It's really funny. And so I'm trying to put together a slide presentation next time I go to a meeting with him that are I'm going to call it the apples to apples report. Because it's going to be apples to apples numbers that don't matter about one's who's better than the other. The bottom line is, guys, this is not good enough. And that's who you are.
Yeah.
Quit fighting with each other.
We're just over half of it.
Stop fighting with each other. Just work on yourselves together. You know, you can all help each other. So that's kind of some of the concept. I listened to Patch the Pirate's funeral the other day. It was like an hour and a half. It was long. Maybe two. It was 2 hours. And his sister got up and said some things about her brother. One thing she said was he always taught her Satan is the devil. Satan is the enemy. No one else. And I almost want to say that to these guys. You guys are not the enemy of each other.
Yeah.
The problem is outside of you, and Satan is outside. And that's the most important point of all of tonight. Is I love you guys to death. We are the same team. And it's a beautiful thing. That's just amazing to me. That my kids grew up and found perfect children that are doing it right. And so this is just another thing about tonight is there's so many parallels in business. There's so many parallels in life. And the Bible talks about we are to teach and learn line upon line, precept upon precept. Line upon line is expositional preaching. Take a Bible chapter, read that's line upon line. But precept upon precept is then going somewhere else in the Bible, and it's topical. It's more topical. Well, when you're relating something like business to spiritual life, this is more precept upon precept. But there are so many precepts that are true. It's not a chapter verse thing. They're true. That the precept that this is hard. It just is true. Everywhere you go, this is going to be hard. So that's the conversation tonight. That is just an interesting conversation. So we're not going to study God's word. We're going to talk about what's been a burden on my heart for probably 4 years now. That's just precepts upon precepts. And the whole conversation. I haven't slept for like 3 years, and I'm a sleeper. I would always tell people I can sleep. But that whole concept it's kind of come to head as COVID came along. I'm driving around with Serena the other day, and I said to her, I started having this conversation in my head with mentally, I'm having a conversation with these two, each end of the spectrum guys. And I'm like, Serena, I got to get them two together. And I got to vent and ask them questions and ask them for help. How do we get through this? Because you were pulling the church this way. You were pulling church this way. I want to get together with those two guys. I swear I'm going to do that, Serena. And Serena's like, Dad, don't do this. Don't do this. You're gonna give us a reputation as a crazy family, And then she stopped herself. She goes, all right, well, what are you going to talk about? So, on her advice, literally, because I think that's important, I said to myself, okay, let's put it on pause. We haven't talked for years. Let's get together, and I'm asking you if I can go talk to them about what we're going to talk about tonight. So don't answer that question until the end of tonight. Okay?
I can answer that question right now.
Don't jump up and say, no.
But I'm not going to answer. But I already have the answers right now.
But right. But that is the simulation.
Yeah.
Because I want us to have fun with it.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's all fun. There's a lot of philosophical conversation. Some of it will be redundant for some of you because poor John I spend a lot of time with. I've shared some of this with you. I've shared some of it with you. I'm sure I've shared a little bit of it with all of you. But then I've added a bunch of stuff too. The stuff that I've added, I'm really excited about doing with you guys because let me switch it up just a little bit and I'll continue this.
One thing I want to say real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned about how Patch Pirate's sister taught him that.
Yeah.
Well, when Tristan and I are having a disagreement, when we're righteously fighting with each other, eventually that's what we have to remind each other of is, and we do in the midst of something that we're dealing with. We often will have to chime in and say, "Listen, I am not your enemy.
That's it.
We're on the same team. We've got to deal with this.
We are one accord.
We can't do
Is
this."
that coming from Tristan?
It's from both of
Is
us.
it?
Yeah, we both have
100% comes from Jessica.
We both have to remind each other
Yes,
of that.
She's telling me something, and I'm like, you just don't. I want to be on my team.
Yeah. So,
She's like, I want to be on your team.
Yeah.
We are on the same
but
team.
we often have to say that to one another. Like, listen, I'm not your enemy. Okay. So that's something to
I couldn't say that more fervently to you guys.
Right.
I do not have a family member that I'm disappointed in on any level. I every day, especially since we've been in the house, every day I get to tell Susan, I'm just overwhelmed with God's blessing. And I'm right at the brink of becoming an old guy. And it's amazing. It's the best. It's going to be the best part of my life, because you start realizing this is God's plan. Your body fails, you grow old, and you can do one thing. You can grow more spiritually and get more things done for Him, and you have more time to get it done. It's just a huge blessing. But if you could truly understand, I appreciate you saying that, Chet. Understand that as my heart is such a blessing. Just having a good family, it's just huge. It's a really good piece of it. So we're going to cover this. When we're done with this, we'll be done with tonight. All that stuff. No, just kidding. This is what's been scrambling and going through my mind for the last 5 years, why I can't sleep. So we're just going to cover a couple of those things here. And I hope that it becomes interactive conversation. After I get done with the introductions, I'll slow down and I want your input as well. And I will also, at the end of the night, want your answer whether or not I can go talk to those two guys. But any time, don't tell me that answer, but any time through the night that I say something, you say, that is not right. This would be a great conversation. I want to know that we're doing right and understanding right. So, you like some of those terms? That's kind of our Christianity terms that we, old and new, we live with today. All right, so I covered that about 100% of your kids. You've heard me say this before, but I always say it. I believe the greatest intimacy two people can share is the mature confrontation of adversity. I think the generations we're having now, about your kids' age, maybe about the time you guys are around, but probably the younger ones, they don't know what confrontation is. They don't understand the advantage of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I thought this a few years back. It was kind of an odd thought, but it was true. The last night I spent with my dad was on November 5th, 2015. And that night I thought to myself, let me just read it. I think I was a better dad to my kids than he was to me. But I need to consider that he had different things to deal with in his life than I did. He made the world a better place. And then he also made it better for me and my children. He improved my life and for my children, me and my children's life, more than I improved your life, my generation. He and his generation saved the world for me and for my children. Although my first statement, which I think I was a better dad, needs to be weighed against the fact that my dad had a different task. His generation had a different task. And Susan and I have been reading several books this last couple of years, and one it related that as generations go by, there's the different tasks based on history of where they sit in history, and it's oftentimes cyclical. For instance, some countries who really get fluency going, like America, the last 50, 80 years, become a white-collar country. And within 2 generations, they go all the way down to blue-collar and back to white. And the same holds true if they're a blue-collar country that doesn't have as much fluency. They might see some profitability, but within another generation, it falls back down to blue-collar again. And the same is true as we talk about some of the precepts upon precepts that I open with. The same is true with sin. It'll rear its head and go back, and people get revival, and then that. And so, as I consider myself as a parent and who my dad was, he had a completely different life to live than I did, and he made this world a really good place for me. And so that becomes a part of what am I doing for the next generation? Am I going to teach them some stuff so they can carry on and keep spiritual life moving for a couple more generations? A good, strong. What percentage of my great grandkids would I be willing to lose for the world? Well,
Zero.
Zero. It's a rhetorical 0. For sure, my grandkids, because I know them, and they're just as important to me as you guys are. As now that I got to know them, but that will become true of your grandchildren. So it's just an interesting thought. And then I got it in your books tonight. There's only one conversation I think I'm getting to that age too where you guys hear me blab on a lot, and eventually it's just like, oh, here comes Bill again. You know, what are we gonna do with this? And I think that there's validity in that. I understand that that thought. But then I go to Covington and hear the pastor speak, and he's in the same conversation. He's saying the same thing I'm saying. I go to hear speak, and we've been to 3 or 4 different churches, and the message, it's the same conversation. There's only one conversation, and there's only 2 days. I shared the 2 days when my dad died, this and that, today, and the day you see Christ. But the conversation is basically, who is God? What did he say? What are you going to do about it? I could put that slide with money back up there. Who is God? Money. What did he say? Well, they each say, I say this is the right way to do it. I don't care. I'm making all the money. So that's what he said. This is what I'm going to do about it. It's the same conversation. We're always in the same conversation. Is what are we going to do about the truth that's right here in front of us today? So I hope you recognize that. I come to you guys in love. Genuinely, no one could love you more than me. Now, there might be somebody that loves you more than me, but I promise you, nobody loves your wife more than I do, not even you. And I'll argue that. And you would probably argue that about your children as well. So I come to you in genuinely in love. It's interesting to me. It drives me nuts. Pastors in the world so oftentimes become pastors right out of college, and they never work in the world. I appreciate that Hayden has worked in the world for a while. We went to a little church up north of us a couple times now, and I met the pastor there. He graduated from Conservative Bible College as an accountant. And he worked as an accountant in Nashville for 10 years, and then became a pastor. I'm like, man, I want to shake your hand. Because I don't think pastors that are only pastors their whole life have ever taken the time to recognize they're experts in the Bible. They're experts in ministry. But there's a lot of expertise in their congregation that they miss out on because they're only thinking of that. And there's so much, if they really realized how much expertise there is in just a Harley Davidson dealership, or in just having a motor clothes, or in just in coffee in restaurants, how much expertise is there in a weld shop? You know, I can say that of each one of you. And I thought this is interesting. You might find it interesting. I made this, what is that thing on? I made this a dashboard so that on the daily, every 2 hours, we can check and see what's going on the floor. Literally, they're going to have this many appointments today. They're going to make this many phone calls today, and we're going to know if we fall short. We're going to know how many hands are getting shaken, get talked to that day, how many greets are made. We know that if every time the cash register rings 3 times, we have to greet somebody. Every time the cash register rings 7 times, we have to set somebody down and talk about buying a motorcycle from us. And if we will write up numbers, every 80% of those 7, if we will write up numbers, 80% of those 7, we know that if we do that, every 25 times the cash register rings, we'll sell a motorcycle. We know that's a science. It's there. And so we strategically are looking at, did you shake that guy's hand? Because I know that cash register started to ring twice today. Because you've got to start right back up here and believe in that model. And that day, we nailed it. Look at 25, we did 26, we were a little behind, and we got our goal. We nailed it that day. And on the month, oh look, we're behind on the month. We're behind on 14 bikes because we have not done it. We know that science. So we become experts in our business, and I wish pastors would grasp that. What the resource is around them other than themselves. So I don't know, that's just maybe a rant I'm on. We're going to do an exercise tonight that you guys get to participate in, because if I just blab all night long, you're going to keep about 20% of it. But I want us to do an exercise that we really get a hold of, that you actually etches into your heart. All right, so now shut up for a little bit. What do you think of this? Is this verse reasonable? And Jonathan has a good example. He brought his Bible tonight. The rest of you guys are going digital.
I'm not digital.
What do you think?
Mine's up there.
I'm not digital. I've memorized it.
The whole thing. I actually read. So Chad, throwing Chad under the bus. Chad starts his Bible devotional.
I did.
Yeah.
127 days ago. Invites me to it.
Yeah.
I'm the only one still doing it. There's like 3 other guys.
He's on it.
There's like 4 guys in it.
There's like 4 guys in it. I'm the only one still doing it. So today we read through Romans chapter 12.
Right.
Oh, look at that.
Read through Romans.
The other day, John Voris and I were talking about teaching and good teaching skills. And we were acknowledging each other that one of the best teaching skills is when you start a class, ask a really, really simple question. So that happened just now. Is this reasonable? If you read this verse, the first half it says, this is your reasonable service.
The answer is in the
So you start as a teacher, really making it easy. I'll ask another one. You answer that one. I gave you that first answer. I'm not going to give you this one. Can you do that without being legalistic? That's a good question. I think as we go through the night, we can answer this question. That's one of our challenges before us. So I didn't give us as an easy one. Okay, so just think about that. That's on the plate as we walk through this a little bit tonight. Chad was studying Hebrews a few weeks back for his group. Can you have a witness without faith? I don't think you can if you read Hebrews 11. Can't really, I'm talking about my witness tonight. But I thought that was precious learning because I was studying my witness, not my testimony, my witness. I don't have a good witness if you read Hebrews 11 if I don't walk with some faith. It's not a great witness unless I'm applying faith once in a while. So then the second half of that is, can you have unity in the church without the conscience of the people? And that's a tougher one to get to. But we'll study that a little bit tonight too. But that's one of the things on the plate. Why are we here? We're here to tell Bill whether or not he can go talk to those two pastors or not. That's why we're here tonight. What I'm going to talk to those 2 pastors about is good, better, and best, and what is the church. Those 2 things. I just want to ask them a little bit about it because I need their help in that because they come from both ends of the spectrum. So that's what we'll cover a little bit tonight. Good, better, best. Some of my slides, you see some headers like that. Just good reference point. This guy's got great stuff on music. The Albert Mohler one is up there. He has great stuff on intellectualism and intellectual conversations and the honesty of them in the world today. So you'll see those as reference points.